Hi everyone. In this video I want to show some quick Photobash techniques that you can do for your sketches, for example for the time machine. And here I'm just making some kind of mind map, different points that I want to add on the time machine. And again, it's very important that you use this as a starting point, that you have some ideas, that you make a mind map so you can look at it and just use those topics with the use of reference, obviously, to make your designs better. I also wrote down different techniques that you can do to make these sketches. Here I'm cleaning up the shape, so that's my shape reference to the left, and I'm going to through my references for the time machine to add different elements like landing gear, cockpits, and so on top of my shape reference. Sometimes you can use elements from the shape reference. For example, I think I'm going to take that element, rotate it so it adds up to be a door. The top thing, the part on top, I'm going to take as well and then rotate it around to find an interesting shape. So you can definitely use elements from within the shape reference to make an interesting design. You could also go to your reference folder and find interesting shapes and functional references that you can use and just Photobash them on top of your design. So I'm basically selecting different elements from different reference photos, things that I think would look interesting on the design, and I know which element I still have to work on because I have this mind map right top corner that reminds me of all the different elements I need for this thing to look like a time machine, for me at least. So here I'm adding some smoke, some light and shadow to give it a bit more volume. Don't think too much about working on different layers. It will only slow down your process. It's about getting the ID down as quick as possible, because in this stage you still don't really know if you're going to use this design for your final. So you want to pitch as many IDs as possible, as quick as possible. To make the design a bit more interesting, I felt that I needed to push the curve a bit more, cover the front. I think here I'm looking for time machines that has been used in movies, books and so on, because I didn't really have the feeling that my machine looked like a time machine yet. So I had the feeling that on time machines you had all these little bits and parts that are kind of based on and stick out. So that's definitely a feeling that I missed in this one, so I tried to fix it a bit. Added some machinery, and again, like, design here is important as well. Contrast, variety. Try to have places with agreeable parts where you hint the technique and the functional parts. Sometimes if you go to the reference, this was like some kind of happy accident. I noticed this skiing box thing, and I'm not sure how to call it, but you're able to put your skis on the outside, so you don't have to take them inside the lift. And I kind of took that idea and placed it outside my time machine as well. So that allows me to add some interesting story details later in my finished rendering, my final painting. So here I'm trying to paint a little bit, but if you think it's not clear for someone else, just write it down, add some notes, add some references, mood references. It's totally not a problem. It's getting the idea across, not making a very nice finished rendering. That's not the point here. If you add lights, think about light shadow to give it a more 3D feeling. I had a feeling here to make everything a bit more alive. I had to like add the smoke, some lights, so that that's definitely possible. And here we talked about in theory sessions, the English theory sessions as well. You need some kind of element, and probably you're going to place on the outside that indicates that you can go back in time. And if you think about time, you think about clocks. What we definitely don't want to see is just a regular clock that you have probably in your home as well. So what you need to do is just look at the typical characteristics that each clock has. It's like round, has these um, time indications, I guess, on it, and different letters or numbers. So that's definitely something that you have to hint in your designs as well. Here I'm basically doing another Photobash. The technique is a bit different. The technique is the same, but the starting point is a bit different. So you also use different photos to Photobash, but I'm not starting from a shape reference. I'm more starting from a reference that I like because it has these scribble parts. So it has parts with a lot of interesting details, and it has parts where everything is a bit more simple. Um, Same thing goes here. You have to find an interesting shape first. Basically, you push yourself to find something, and if you find something, if you read something in this shape, if you see a story happening, you basically do everything to make that story more clear. So here I'm still searching for an interesting shape. The top part was a bit too symmetrical. So here the same thing, if you look at the right and left side, it's a bit too symmetrical. So I rotated the cockpit slightly. So it's a bit off balance. I added the typewriter because I want to have somewhat the same feeling where you would go outside, find the time and place where you want to go, like type it in or press some keys or whatever, and then you have to rush inside again to make sure you're going back in time with the time machine, I guess. Here it looked like this was some kind of big lever or handle, I'm not sure how to call it, to start the whole process. So I just took a Photobash on top of it. Then I imagined if you want to use that, probably you need some kind of construction where you can walk on. The cool thing about these photos is, and using this technique, that you already have all the detail inside. It's ready for you. You just have to tweak it, maybe scale it, rotate it, so it's works in your story. Um, but the thing is, like, you don't have to invent it, right? This would be a whole or a lot more difficult if you would draw every part here and basically invent it on your own on paper. And the cool thing about these photos is all the details already here. It's details that normally, I think, and even for me, I wouldn't really think of because I didn't know it existed. Trying to find a cool shape for the door. Also have to make sure that the scale still works. We don't want the time machine to be too big. And then I found this image, and it basically triggered me to make maybe everything a bit more round. So that's the door shape. So I made everything a bit more round, so it's has like a nicer shape to it, I think. Um, so some more windows, and basically the final step is to push the light and shadow more. You can do that with a normal layer where you pick from the photos, just color pick, add light and shadow, or you could also use burn and dodge, for example, to go darker and lighter, or you could use several blending modes, which would probably give the same effect more or less. Adding some smaller story details to finish it, and at a point like you would know that this is finished, right? The story is there. One final thing that you can do is add some figures for skill, which I'm doing right now. So you can make a selection and just use the clone stamp tool to quickly block in some textures that were already in place in the Photobash. Good luck.